things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever home. Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Don't you wish that your weekend was longer than just 2 days? Well, if so, then you're in luck, because here on Ripon Common Sense Radio, our weekend begins on Wednesday. Yes, you heard that right. Our weekend kicks off every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, with Dark Wolf's Den, starring yours truly, Jerry the Dark Wolf. But that's where the fun has only just begun. Make sure you come back every Thursday through Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show, starring AJ the Ripon Rabbit. He dives into the archives of vocal legend Art Bell and brings those stories up to date. So make sure that you spend your extended weekends with the Animals of Radio, Jerry the Dark Wolf and AJ the Ripon Rabbit, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, every Wednesday through Sunday, right here on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson with Reality Shifters and the International Mandela Effect Conference, and you're now listening to Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
Hello. Hello.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light, and you're now listening to Dark Wolf's Den.
Are ghosts real?
We had 1,000 hours of continuous communication with the spirit world.
Does time travel actually exist?
The laws of physics seem to be compatible with time machines.
You know, sometimes I wonder about reincarnation. Don't you?
A 4-year-old boy in Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana.
What would happen if the world found out that aliens were real?
I didn't say disclosure would be easy, but what is the alternative?
To establish a space force as the 6th branch of the armed forces.
We have so many questions and yet so little time, so to have you here, the pleasure is all mine.
Coming to you from a secret mountain cave hidden deep within the Idaho wilderness, this is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and this is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. It is August 19th, 2020, and whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, the edge of your seat, or anywhere in between, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Tonight's topic, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be missing. The missing 411, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy these case files. This is really a very, very mysterious topic, and I can't wait to get started. But first, today in history. The news of gold found in California was first printed in the New York Herald on this day. And of course, we know the gold rush, it lasted from 1848 to 1849, believe it or not, less than a year. But the gold had actually been found on January 24th, 1848. It took this long to reach from California to New York. And that was this week's Today in History. And I'm sure a lot of people actually probably went missing going across the rugged terrain trying to get to California, especially when you started coming in from the East Coast. That is a lot of terrain and it is rugged. A lot of mountainous areas, a lot of hills, a lot of caves, a lot of bumpy roads. And then again, back then there weren't roads, were there? Yeah, guys, it was a tumultuous time, the gold rush. But, again, a lot of people went missing, I'm sure, and there's some explanations, usually through history, but nowadays there's something else going on, and it's going on in our national parks. People are straight up going missing right in the middle of national parks, and it's happening at an alarming level. If you guys have heard of a man named David Paulides, he's an ex-police officer, and he really got into investigating the missing persons reports across all of the national parks. And what we're going to hear tonight is more than a little strange. It is, again, I warn everybody, not for the faint of heart. We are talking about a lot of missing persons cases, a lot of which are still unsolved. And the evidence that are included in these cases, the evidence that match each other, as we know and we learn from all the episodes we've done so far, I'm sure, is that the evidences that show up in multiple case files across all the different phenomenon, then you really know to start looking at these pieces of evidence. And these case files have nothing short of a stack of pieces of evidence that match. And what we're going to hear first is from a channel called Top Mysteries. And he's going to explain to us the basics of the missing 411. And then on the second half of the show, you guys might want to stay tuned. We're going to hear some case files directly from the man himself, Mr. Politis. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for an amazing show. And we're going to start, like I said, with Top Mysteries. Here is a good breakdown of what the missing 411, if you don't know, is all about.
It sounds like an urban legend. An author and former policeman was on vacation when he was approached by two off-duty rangers who asked him to look into the number of people who go missing in the national park system. They were too afraid of retaliation to appear in uniform and asked that the national park they work for and the time period they met the author to be kept secret.
And as we know, this would become his new life's mission to figure out what happened to all the people missing in the national parks. But first we have to get a list of who all's missing, right? You have to know what you're working with and who you're dealing with before you can go any further. Find out the case files, like any good detective would, try to figure out what all evidences are there. Well, this time it wasn't as easy as one would think.
Something that makes this topic even stranger is the fact that the national parks either do not keep a list of missing persons or are refusing to release it. It's almost as if they themselves are acknowledging that something bizarre is happening, but don't want to cause a panic.
And as we know, that is not the first time the government has chosen that discretion.
Making a note of this, some years ago, Polides filed for a Freedom of Information Act request against the National Park Service, asking for a list of missing persons throughout all of the national parks in the country. He was aware that the Park Service had a federally trained law enforcement branch familiar with the standard protocols of any police agency, meaning that they should have records for missing persons within their jurisdiction.
Should, of course, being the operative word here.
Despite not needing to provide a motive for a Freedom of Information request, Polides was questioned by an attorney for the Park Service as to why he was interested in obtaining a missing persons record. He was told that he would get the information regardless, but that they just wanted to know why.
Which, let's be honest, if somebody's asking for information, I see no issue in asking why you're asking. If you're a researcher or what's going on, I think that's not a bad thing that the government did on their part. However...
But when he said he was just doing research, he was told that no such record existed. When he pushed back, asking for what it would take to obtain such a list, he was told that he would need to pay $1.4 million for a comprehensive national list, or $34,000 for Yosemite alone.
And of course he means Yosemite, but that is ridiculous. Millions of dollars for a list that should be public knowledge and information? There's no way they should be able to force anybody to pay for some type of information like that, just because they want to cover up something. But that's speculation. We haven't heard all the evidence yet, so let's hear what else they've got.
You might want to get a hot drink, get comfy, and come into this with an open mind, because this goes to some extremely weird and bizarre places.
And of course, with all of our topics that we discuss on this show, we definitely need to keep an open mind. And this is, of course, no different. As you listen to these case files, guys, keep an open mind and just think what may or may not be happening. Because sometimes logic gets a little bit twisted. And remember, the word impossible is not used on this show on purpose.
So let's start with this. What exactly is the criteria used to determine whether or not a missing person case defies a logical explanation?
And this, of course, being very, very important, what can we automatically rule out? What case files can we say don't belong with the case files that we're specifically looking for? How are we going to weed them down? And he's actually come with a pretty interestingly simple set of criteria for this.
David Polides has said that his Can-Am missing team rule out any cases where there is clear evidence of animal predation, mental health issues, and suicidal intent, the person deliberately wanting to walk away from their life and not be found, a crime, or a drowning.
That seems like a pretty simple but comprehensive list of things to rule out. People that are trying to disappear, or people that have mental health issues, or, certain criteria that don't match. That leaves a good bit of case files still. What else can we garner so far from the case files?
The profile of the victim is usually the following. People who go missing usually do so in national parks around large bodies of water or near boulder fields.
Of course, the larger bodies of water, I'm sure we could all agree accidents can occur, and sometimes the bodies don't always reappear. I will give it that, but the boulder fields leave me a little more stumped.
People from both ends of the intellectual spectrum go missing, e.g., people who have intellectual divergencies or disabilities go missing, as well as individuals who work careers as scientists, etc.
So it can't be said that it's just one IQ level. It's just those that aren't as smart, or it's those that are overly smart. It's across the board on IQ level.
People from both ends of the physical spectrum go missing, e.g., people who are physically disabled and cannot walk long distances, as well as individuals who live extremely active lives and are very fit.
So fitness level apparently also has no bearing on it. Now this is getting interesting.
If the missing individual is found alive, they usually have memory loss about the entire event.
That's one key piece of evidence I've seen in other types of case files, but not in this particular phenomenon, in another phenomenon.
Children sometimes tell weird stories about how they went missing.
And again, yes, it's different for children, and somehow, they might not always know how to describe the world or describe what they're experiencing, just like we would as adults. However, these case files, they're even more on the edge of strange.
I recall one where a toddler went missing on a rather cold night and somehow survived. She claimed a wolf fed her berries from the palm of its hand, and that's how she survived.
I swear to God, it was not me. But that is an interesting story, though. A wolf fed her berries from the palm of its hand. So it's got adult-like, human-like qualities, I would say. Maybe not adult, but human qualities of some type.
If the missing individual is found deceased, the cause of death is almost never determined, often seeming as though they died without a cause at all. Medical examiners usually write they died from exposure if they do not have a better answer to give.
Which happens disturbingly more often than you would really like to know. As we've learned in 2020, that is not exactly a unknown occurrence, padding the numbers.
The missing are found in areas that seem difficult, if not impossible to reach by foot, or in the time that has lapsed. Such as a child being found 12 miles away in just a matter of a few hours.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be miles and miles away either. These children have been found in altitudes much higher than they were at, in terrain that was very, very unlikely that they were able to actually cross by themselves.
A common example is children as young as 2 and 3 going missing and being found in high elevations such as mountains 2,000 foot in the air. Sometimes the children have their clothes on backwards or inside out, and their parents claim that they can't even dress themselves yet.
This is another fact that shows up across a lot of the missing children case files up under this umbrella. However, there is yet to be an explanation for that particular part of the case files.
The missing are found in an area that's been searched by the search and rescue teams numerous times over a period of days, usually a week or longer. Sometimes they're even found on the trail that's used to access the area they're searching, almost as if they're placed there intentionally in order to surely be found by the SAR. Search and rescue teams are meticulous about their searches.
If it were 1 or 2 case files, maybe, but I find it no coincidence at all that these people show back up in areas that have already been searched.
A lot of cases involve people who go missing for a week but only died a day or 2 prior to being found, which begs the question of where they were during their time missing, as well as what happened to them.
And yes, I will cop to the argument that over a number of days, exposure may have had a hand in it, yes, but that's only assuming they were in what we call reality at the time, but that again is just an assumption.
The shoes tend to go missing, either just one or both. Many people are found in bizarre places at high altitudes or in tough terrain, and their socks or the soles of their feet don't have a speck of dirt or wear on them. This is true for children too.
And we did mention the terrain a moment ago, but how do you go the entire way and have socks on and not get them dirty? Not even a speck of dirt to be found. That's really, really interesting.
Search and rescue dogs will be unable to pick up a scent, or if they do, they'll follow it a few feet and then begin acting bizarrely. They'll circle and then sit down. This is not common behavior for search and rescue canines.
Now, if I were to come at this at a purely paranormal researcher point of view, I would argue that there is some type of portal, or that the person literally disappeared in the spot in which the dog lost the scent and started acting bizarre. I would say the dog is either reacting to the energy around it, or just saying, hey, look, the person disappeared right here and there's nothing else to be said. I could also argue abduction from aliens, but that would definitely be stretching the speculation just a little bit.
Investigators do not find any tracks 9 times out of 10, and if they do, they seem to stop inexplicably and lead nowhere, as if the person just vanished into thin air.
Which, once again, coming from only a paranormal researcher's perspective, I would argue also that they literally disappeared or slipped into another dimension of some type. That is speculation only from a paranormal researcher's point of view, without including any other points of view of logic.
Animal attacks are ruled out by experts. One completely bizarre thing about these cases is that many of them are extremely similar.
Like we speak of a lot on this episode, it is those similarities that we must focus on across all of the case files.
You'll have a situation where a child goes missing right under the parents' noses. I'm talking 1 second they're there, they're talking, they're having fun, they'll be out of line of sight for a few moments, and that's it, they're gone.
And I have literally heard stories of people disappearing right in front of the group. The person in the lead goes around a corner, the next person goes around the same corner, and they're gone. Not a hint to be found, they just disappeared, vanished into thin air. I've heard this story a couple times across case files.
They quite literally seem to have disappeared into thin air. An anonymous user on Quora has compiled some of David's research via his books and lectures. The following are some of the bizarre cases, and I quote, "In cases I know of, stories told by people who go missing and are found are not what you would expect. These stories may challenge your understanding of reality, be warned. I included names. It is important that we are respectful and polite of people who go missing and are returned, and do not try to contact them so that they can live normal lives. They can come forward with their story if they want to. This first account may seem silly at first, but that may change as we continue. I've added it to demonstrate just how long these encounters have been going on for."
And now we're going to get into the real meat of the episode. I know you guys have been waiting for an actual case file this whole episode, because that's what I'm known to do, is present the case files. And without further ado, here we go.
In 1868, a 3-year-old girl disappeared from her father's lumber camp in northern Michigan. After enlisting the help of a pair of professional hunters who happened on the historical search scene by chance, the men traced the little girl's feeble cries to a dense stand of brush. When the men advanced on the thicket, they saw what they said looked like a giant bear burst from it and run across the river, heading for the distant horizon. The men recovered the girl unharmed from the brush. She later told them that Mr. Wolf would not let her leave and had eaten her hat right off her head, although he had also gathered berries and fed them to her. Here's Ida Mae Curtis's similar story.
This one seems like just a more detailed version of the one that we heard earlier, so it's not exactly new information, although Mr. Wolf eating the hat off of her head and feeding her berries from the palm of his hand, that's a little, well, let's be honest, that's really strange.
On the night of July the 2nd, 1955, Mrs. Curtis, summoned by her distraught older children, arrived just in time to see what she and the children said was a huge bear cradling her 2-year-old daughter, Ida Mae Curtis. In its front paws, it scurried off on 3 legs from their tent in a lumber camp at the wild Kootenai National Forest in Montana. On July 4th, after a search by 350 backwoodsmen in heavy rain, Ida was found dry and safe in a crudely built shelter across a river just 300 yards away from where she was taken. Ida would later relate, to the best of a 2-year-old's ability, being cuddled and comforted by the bear during the time she was missing.
And we all know that is not normal bear behavior.
The sheriff became so angry that he actually paid the Curtises 3 separate visits, demanding that they stop telling their story of a bear abducting and caring for their little girl. He told them, "Quit telling that story, it could never happen, it didn't happen, and don't say it anymore."
And is anyone here surprised that the government, or an authoritative official, I should say, that speaks for the government, was there telling them to stop telling their story? It could not happen, it's nonsense. That to me is typical for cases that I've run across most of my life.
So, just to summarize the first case. In the 1800s, a girl went missing while with her father. Similar situation, she was there and then not there. 2 hunters help her father search. They call her name, no response, just like all the cases. The following day, they are near a river and hear the girl's muffled voice and make their way there. They hear a huge splash, and out of the corner of their eyes, they see a huge dark figure jumping into the river and swimming to the other side. They see the girl standing on a log. She's missing items of clothing. The father talks with her and asks, "Where's your hat?" "Girl, the wolf ate it." "Where's your gloves?" "Girl, the wolf ate it." "Why didn't you call? Why didn't you say something when we called?" "Girl, he wouldn't let me." "Did you get anything to eat?" "Girl, the wolf brought me berries in its hands." David goes on to say, in his missing 411 Eastern book, there are several incidents of kids reporting that they were taken by bears. Bears that coddle kids, bears that feed the kids, but specifically, this girl said a wolf, and it was a giant wolf.
Could there possibly be a hybrid of some type, a wolf-human hybrid, or any type of hybrid that would look like a wolf to a child? I can't think of any other creature that would feed berries out of the palm of their hand, or even have a hand if it were a wolf. Or maybe it's somebody in a wolf's costume, even though I don't know why they would eat the hat or gloves, but to a child that might look like what they've done. So again, we can't rule out bad people in this just yet.
Here's another bizarre case. On December 20, 2014, Polides detailed the case of Lillian Carney on the radio show Where Did the Road Go? Here's a summary. Lillian was from Mazardis, Maine, which is 50 miles west of the Canadian border and surrounded by lakes, rivers, and points, 6 years old. She went missing August 8, 1897 at noon. Lillian and her parents went blueberry picking. People go missing while picking berries is a theme in these cases.
Perhaps picking the berries has upset the nature spirits.
They were there for a short amount of time and the parents said she just vanished. They searched for an hour and then they got some people in the area to help. By the following morning, there were 200 searchers there calling for Lillian. Polides said when searchers are looking for someone, they call the person's name, say that they're their friend and that they're there to help. Polides said in the missing 411 cases, the searchers never get a response, which is strange if people are lost, cold or hungry. On Tuesday, around 300 residents arrived to search, and at 10 AM, a guy named Bert Polland found her somewhere between 2 and 3 miles from where the parents last saw her. There wasn't much detail in the article about where they found her. While Lillian didn't say a lot, she made an interesting statement. "The sun shined all the time while I was in the woods."
And that is an absolutely baffling statement, because it can be broken down in a number of ways. We could go back to our alien theory and say that it was a UFO of some type lighting up the entire area around them, or we could go with the multiple dimension idea, and that they slipped into a dimension where a bright sun in the forest was a natural thing. Again, this is all speculation.
Just absolutely baffling. Anyway, Polides said that that was a weird thing for a 6-year-old to say.
I'm sorry, that's a weird thing for anybody to say.
The weather was stated in the news article as being partly cloudy and she had spent 2 nights outside and was missing for 46 hours.
Now, wait a second. There was 2 nights, he said. It was dark at twice, and it was partly cloudy during the day, but her claim was the sun shined the entire time.
Here's another case. I'll give you the summary breakdown. 3-year-old boy, John Doe, disappears from his parents in Mount Shasta along a creek river where people go fly fishing on October the 1st, 2010 at 6:30 p.m. Polides has said people seem to go missing between 2:30 and 6:30 p.m. in the cases he has researched.
Now, that is new information on me. That's the first time I've heard that there was a time frame in which it was most likely to happen.
Polides also said people say strange things happen in this area, such as people saying that there are beings called the Murians that live under the area, and Bigfoot and UFO sightings.
And Mount Shasta has shown up in case files for me across a number of rabbit holes.
Anyway, to get back on track, the parents contact the sheriff and a search starts. They don't find him. They find him 5 hours later at 11:30 p.m. at night, sitting in a thicket. He doesn't say anything. He's taken home and is in a state of stunned disbelief. They talk to him and ask him what happened the next morning. He tells a story that he's taken into a cave that he thinks is underground. He says that he knows it's dark outside, but when in the cave I could see the entrance and it's light outside. He said he is with a woman who looks like his grandmother and he thought it was his grandmother. In the cave he saw other things that look like people but are in fact robots. After a while he figures out that the woman isn't his grandmother even though she is nice and polite with him. He concludes she's a robot. He said there was some unusual light coming from her head.
If you remember a couple weeks ago we did the schoolyard UFO episode, and one of those case files mentioned the kids saying that they thought it was a robot that they were interacting with. And of course that music you guys know means it's almost time to go into break, but man, I can't believe this episode is almost half over. We've barely even scratched the surface of this thing. There is so much information, but I might have to end up doing a part 2 show, right? Ladies and gentlemen, with that said, we are going to go ahead and take a network break. I'm Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we'll be back with part 2 with the Dark Wolf's Den Show, where we're going to hear from the man himself, Mr. David Politis, right after these messages. Don't you touch that dial.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Sex in the City? Nope. Interview with a Vampire? Nope. If you build it, they will come? Febreze? Tweeze in the middle? Wrong again. Depends. Nope. Welcome to the Twilight Zone, my friends. A phenomenon known as the Mandela Effect. You may have heard of it. You may want to not neglect unbecoming, awake, and spiritually inclined. So sit back, relax, while I blow your mind. Take the thumb off the cell, stop following the sheep. Down the rabbit hole we go. Are you ready for that leap? The Zapruder film, #JFK. I looked at the footage and I said, what the heck? How come there are 6 people in that dang car? Stretch limo, for me, this was all too bizarre. A glass behind the driver, no way, Jose. I remember in the car, my mind was in total disarray. Trying to make sense of what I was seeing, what I was witnessing. Didn't connect with my inner being. A second woman in the car for me was only the first lady. Do you smell what the rock is cooking? All this seemed kinda shady. Berenstein Bears. Nope. Shazam? Sinbad? Not in this reality. Good lord. An awakening. Was it all a revelation? The naysayers and skeptics call it confabulation. They say you misremembered and call us bat crazy. Did you smoke a doob? Maybe that's why it's a little bit hazy. Unless you experience it, you'll never know. But enough of that. On with this Mandela Effect flow. Mandela Effect in the house. What in the world happened to Ed McMahon? In this reality, Publishers Clearinghouse was not a fan. Never the spokesperson, but we remember it clear as day. McMahon holding that check while the winner yelled out, yay! American Family Publishers, never heard of them until now. This Mandela Effect has me raising the people's eyebrow. So many theories on what it could be. Have you ever heard of CERN and the LHC? Luke, I am your father. Nope. Sally Fields? Nope, wrong again. for the Large Hadron Collider, I thought I would mention, you know, the machine that opens up portals into different dimensions. You're probably thinking that this is all science fiction, but you gotta think outside the box and have no restrictions. Alternate realities and parallel dimensions. Okay, I get some of your apprehensions. Could this all be a spiritual evolution? Cause the human race has grown tired of this toxic pollution. Mandela effect in the house. No, you're not going crazy. Some people, they just don't understand. That's just the way it is. You know? Stay strong, my friends. That's just the way it is. Dolly has no braces? Are you serious? Good lord. Joel Osteen. So what the heck happened to the L? Oh my gosh. Oh, this is definitely the Twilight Zone. This is crazy. Anyhow.
Hi everyone, it's AJ, the Ripon Rabbit here. Are you enjoying your start to the weekend? Thanks to Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den Show, our weekends start on Wednesday nights and travel all the way through the rabbit holes to Sunday. Right here on the very best of common sense radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. If you're enjoying tonight's look at Missing 411 by the Dark Wolf's Den Show, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. I'll be back again tomorrow night, Thursday, August 20th, with a look at quantum computing. Exactly what is quantum computing and how does it affect us directly or perhaps in the future? Tune in tomorrow night and find out. Then Friday, August 21st, apple a day keeps what? Finish the sentence. Does an apple a day really keep the doctor away? We'll look into where this thinking and similar sayings come from. Do you believe it's true? Or is this just an old wives' tale? The Rabbit Hole goes deep Friday, August 21st, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then Saturday, August 22nd, join me for a look at snake oil. Medicine men and snake oils will dive down the rabbit hole of elixirs, both from the present and throughout our past. What snake oils are being sold to us today? Tune in Saturday, August 22nd, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, and find out. Then we'll end out the weekend together, Sunday, August 23rd, with an exciting look at daredevils. Are you a risk taker, thrill seeker, or a daredevil? Some people risk life for entertainment, but why? We're going to investigate that rabbit hole Sunday, August 23rd, as we end out the weekend together, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. All shows begin at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Be here or be square. Now, I'm not going to tell you when, but on one of these nights throughout the weekend, we're going to have a very special surprise. You're just going to have to tune in live if you want to be a part of it. But that's going to happen this weekend, a very special surprise just for you. If you're new to our weekend lineups here at the Ripon Rabbit Hole, make sure that you visit our website, riponrabbithole.com, and jump on our mail list. We'll send you out our weekend schedule every Wednesday morning. We'll be back to Jerry Hicks, Dark Wolf's Den Show, and Missing 411 now as we continue the second part of the program. Stick around, a lot more to come right here on riponrabbithole.com.
YouTube creator that's tired of fighting over copyright issues for using the wrong music in your videos? Or perhaps a songwriter looking for something new? I know when I started Dark Wolf's Den, I needed some original music, and for me, the answer was a no-brainer. I immediately called Tom Bayless of Red Shed Studios. Tom has been in the music industry for over 20 years and has a true passion for the art. So if you need a custom soundtrack for your next project, make sure you contact Tom Bayless at Red Shed Studios at 920-344-7634. That's 920-344-7634. Red Shed Studios.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, the edge of your seat, or anywhere in between, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are discussing the missing 411, and this is actually another requested episode. You know our buddy Juanito 1975 that does our Mandela Effect rap poem song, Going Out to Break. He actually requested this topic a couple weeks ago, and we promised him we would get it on the list, and here we are. And you guys have a show suggestion or topic that you would like us to cover? It's really easy. You can just get over to the riponrabbithole.com, go down to the rabbit holes, select the Dark Wolf's Den Show discussion topics and groups, and we will definitely be over there reading that. Drop us a line and let us know what you want to hear us tell you. And you know, every week we cover a new topic, and this week is no different. This topic here, of course, is huge. I mean gargantuan. If you're just tuning in, guys, we're talking about the missing 411. Those people who have gone missing in the national parks of America and have no explanation why. And in the second half here, like I promised in the first half, we are going to hear from the man who has done all the footwork, collected all these case files himself, and put together a couple books even on the phenomenon. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. David Paulides.
Now, one of the things I was going through the last couple days were cases that really should have never happened. And here's what I mean about that. Let's talk quickly about Jared Attadero. Boy missing from northern Colorado. His dad owned a resort with his uncle. And Jared's sister got invited to go to the fish hatchery. She got the okay from the dad, and she was going to go with some people who were staying at the resort. At the last minute, Jared comes to Alan, the dad, and says, "Dad, I want to go with Jocelyn to go see the fish." And his dad says, "Okay, yeah, you want to go, okay." And he talked to the people that were going. The approval was there. People said they'd look after Jared, and they left. Case should have never happened. He was not supposed to go on that trip, but he did. That was number one issue. Second issue of that day, the people that took Jocelyn and Jared to the fish hatchery, after the fish hatchery, decided on their own to drive another 20 plus miles up into the mountain and go to a trailhead and hike a trail, without ever asking Alan, the dad, if Jocelyn and Jared could do this.
And I am with David on this one. That one should have never occurred. They should not have just went off on their own and went up into the mountain and did whatever they wanted to. They should have definitely asked permission for the parents to do that before they took those kids with them.
Now, fast forward a couple hours, when they come back and they tell Alan that his son's missing, he's thinking, well, how could they be missing from a fish hatchery? Oh, no, we're at the trailhead. We're way up there. Imagine the confusion. Imagine how the frustration that Alan felt. And worse than that, the news never got the story right to begin with, and I was one of the first ones to present it the correct way, and I got it from law enforcement reports. So Alan was crucified by the public for being a bad parent, which is completely crap.
Which is another reason we should always investigate anything and everything that we read or hear, especially nowadays. Because all Alan did was allow his son and daughter to go with another set of adults, nonetheless, that should have taken care of him. And nonetheless, he disappears right into thin air.
That case should have never happened. Let's talk about Carl Landers, who disappeared on the side of Mount Shasta, hiking with his 3 buddies.
And like David said, I agree, that case should have never happened. And of course, this next story, we all know Mount Shasta is the home of many, many paranormal case files.
They're in a tent on the side of Mount Shasta. And Carl wasn't feeling well. And I talked to you about people get separated, point of separation. And I talked to you about people feeling ill. Carl was ill that night. Now, they're getting all together, and the plan was that the 3 of them were going to hike up the mountain together. And as they're getting ready, Carl didn't feel well and said, hey, maybe I should just take off early because you guys will catch me, blah, blah, blah. And they said, yeah, take off. Now, there's nothing between Carl, his friends, and the next stop up the hill 1.5 miles. There's nothing. You could see it. So the guys focus their energy on putting the tent away as Carl takes off and goes. They put the tent away, they stash it, they get ready to go, they look up, they're not seeing Carl, but they're not really concerned about it then. But then when they hit the next stop and they met the ranger who was checking people in for the hike, he's nowhere to be found. The case should have never happened. Carl should have been hiking with his friends. But that point of separation and the illness that Carl felt forced him to leave early. Just a conglomeration of errors and weird coincidences.
Although some skeptics may say and argue that the person was ill so they were confused and you may be disoriented about their location. That I don't really know so much about. I don't really agree with that. Then again, maybe he was sick and disoriented because of the area or the energies of the area. It could be either way.
How about Tom Messick, who disappeared in New York and is in Missing 411 The Hunted? Tom had been hunting with his friends for decades. They owned a hunting lodge together. They had done this hundreds of times.
And if we have any hunters that listen to the show, you guys know that you know your area, you know the woods, you know how to get around in nature, you know how not to get lost. There are certain tricks that people hang out in the woods know. And by people that hang out in the woods, I mean hunters, things like that. This is a really, really weird case file here, as if all of them are.
But on this incident, instead of going through the woods as a group and staying together, they decide to spread out 100 feet, 150 feet apart. And just as a complete fluke again, Tom's the last guy in line at the end when everybody lines up and walks into the woods. So Tom has nothing to his left side, and he disappears. Never is found. Coincidence? Maybe.
And as much as you guys know I dislike the word impossible, coincidence is another one that's on that list of disliked words. I don't so much believe in coincidences. Now, synchronicities, I do believe in. Things that line up as patterns, that I believe in. Coincidences, I really don't think those exist. I think coincidences are better called time-locked events than anything, but there's another good question that needs to be asked. David?
But how many coincidences do you have to have before you start saying, this isn't right?
And among paranormal case files, like I've said in the last couple of shows, those evidences that show up repeatedly in the case files, those things that are coincidences, are probably not coincidences. And that's why I have a hard time believing in them, because they show up so consistently across so many different case files that it's hard to ignore that after a while, and it's hard to just call them all coincidence after a while.
This doesn't make sense. And herein lies the problem. People like to be able to reconcile things in their mind by saying that word coincidence.
or rationalize it as best that they can. And we're all guilty of this, especially when it comes to something like the Mandela effect. How many coincidences, how many Mandela effects got to happen before you admit that it's real, right? How many times do you have to go back and look at coincidences before you start wondering why these coincidences exist at all?
Now, there was a man who wrote an article for the Huffington Post, and it said, "Don't be last in line." That was the title of the article. And he had read my books. And at that point, I think I had written 4. And in the Post, he chronicled a whole series of events where the people that disappeared were the last one in the line of a group that were going up a trail. Or as in Tom, the last one in a line of hunters.
I've heard the argument posed that because the last in line is the easiest to pick off by an animal, but even an animal you would hear, especially a hunter, would hear the footsteps, would hear the tracks, would hear the sticks breaking, would hear the leaves rustling, would hear something. It wouldn't just be a silent disappearance. There would be an animal sound, there would be a scream, there would be something. I'm sure the guy wouldn't just go quietly, no matter which person it is. If you're last in line or first, if there's something that has attacked you, you're not going to just silently disappear. You're going to make some noise and there's going to be something heard. So I don't agree with the idea that it's animal attacks because it's the last person in line. I think that theory's just really stretching the idea of logic at that point.
And he wrote about how this couldn't be coincidence because it had happened too many times. There's got to be something to this.
And there's that word coincidence again, and it's mere rationalization, like David said a moment ago. And, you know, we're all guilty, like I said. I remember when I seen Jif peanut butter for the first time. I thought, wow, what an odd marketing change that I rationalized in my head as something normal in marketing. I didn't even think twice of Jiffy never having existed to begin with. So, yeah, things like that. You know, you rationalize. Oh, maybe I set my keys over here and just didn't think about it. Whatever. We rationalize a lot of stuff in our heads that if we stopped and thought about it just a little bit further, maybe the rationale wasn't as solid as we thought it was.
The more cases I present to you where this has happened, you have to start to think in your own mind that this is more than just coincidence.
And once again, the question needs to be asked, how many coincidences, quote, end quote, can occur before they're no longer coincidences?
Now, in Alan's case, in Tom Messick's case, in Lander's case, saying hello, a lot of strange things went on, but none stranger than Dale Staling at Mesa Verde National Park.
And, of course, we saved our best case file for last.
So Dale, his wife, and his mom and dad decided to drive up to and through Colorado and in their RV from Texas. And on their way through in New Mexico, their RV broke down. So they decided that since they were pretty close to Mesa Verde, they'd spend the night in Cortez and then go in and see the park. This case should have never happened. Their car broke down. So they get into the park, and Dale's sitting there with the wife, and he's an energetic sort, likes to hike. Everyone's sitting around, it's super hot. He's saying, "I'm just going to go down to the Cliff House, and I'll be back." Well, I think that was probably his excuse to just get out and stretch his legs and get away from people for a while, and he was going to go do a little hike. He just didn't want to tell them. And he did take a hike, and he was seen by others a couple miles away on a trail, and he talked to people because he was a social guy. But he disappeared somewhere on that trail, and he was never found.
And I would have to dare to ask the question of all of the people on that trail, why just one person going missing? That I find a little strange too, and nobody has any idea. No sound, no witness, no nothing. The guy just disappears right in the middle of a hike.
Now this is the case where a reporter the next day was coming in to talk to the superintendent. And he said, "Hey, come back in a while. We got an emergency going on." She goes out on the trail and she hears somebody calling for help on the trail Dale was at. She comes in and she tells the park people, and the park people again say, "Wow, somebody reported that yesterday." They send people out again, they search, and they're not found.
So 2 times the guy can be heard calling for help, yet the search crews could not find him 2 times in a row. It was reported to the ranger's cabin that they heard yelling of help on the trail, and nothing is ever found. They send out search crews, hunting teams, the whole 9 yards, and they find nothing at all.
When you think about this in hindsight, I don't know how the families reconcile it, because if only a couple of things would have been different, all of these things would have never happened. And that's what's weird. It's not like it was a completely planned event to go to the park, we're going to hike the trail, we're going to spend the day, no, they never even planned on being there. But something happened.
And once again, I would make the argument that this is the epitome of what I call a time-locked event. Whether it be them disappearing or whatever the event may be, the circumstances suddenly faded its way out, or the circumstances kind of played out in such a way that it led to this event occurring. It was a random chance, the whole 9 yards every time, and because of this random chance event, the person absolutely disappears.
A friend of mine, Travis Walton. Travis and I have done a lot of conferences together.
And for those who don't know the name Travis Walton, in ufology, that is a very famous name. He is known for the movie Fire in the Sky. It's based loosely, he says, but quite interestingly, on the events that really did happen to him as he disappeared for a number of days right in front of his friends into an alien abduction UFO scenario right in front of everybody and reappeared days later. This is one of the most documented cases in all of ufology, documented across police reports and many doctor findings, and it's a really amazing case file. If you ever get the chance to check out Travis Walton's story, I would definitely check that out. And it's something we've got to cover someday on this show, without a doubt.
He was at a presentation I made where he took his son so the son could view my presentation. Great guy, extremely credible. And when I read about this stuff, it reminds me of what happened to Travis in the woods. And I present this to you because that area of Grand Prairie, just west of that in British Columbia, has many disappearances. So I want you to know that I appreciate you watching my channel. I read you these things because I hope that it keeps you informed of what's going around the world and people writing. Thank you. I really want people to heed what I said, please. And let's try to clean things up a bit. And I want you to also think about the coincidences I told you on those cases. Have a great week, and hopefully I'll be back soon. Thank you.
And thank you, David. Again, that is David Paulides of the Missing 411. And actually, his YouTube channel is called Can-Am Missing, which is CANAM Missing. That is Canada and American missing people, mysterious missing people at that, the Missing 411. And let's not be complacent, ladies and gentlemen. We all love to get out and get into nature and do a lot of fun stuff, but we must always be vigilant, because this could happen to any one of us. That's what makes this really, really scary. It could happen to any given person. We could all just disappear. And let's hope that doesn't happen. But, you know, it could be anything. It could be wild animals, which I highly doubt. It could be maybe time slips, maybe glitches in the Matrix. Maybe they slip into different dimensions. Maybe they literally disappear out of existence altogether. There's so many wild paranormal options. Maybe it's Bigfoot. Maybe it's some animal we've never found before because it is so sneaky. But why these things happen are yet to be explained. And you, ladies and gentlemen, in the end, you're the judge. Is something paranormal going on? Is it something logical? Are there some really creepy people in the woods that are grabbing people? Is this just fully explainable by logic, or could it be something else? In the end, ladies and gentlemen, you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right. That's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show. I hope everybody enjoyed the Missing 411. I know there's so much more to the Missing 411, and we will definitely come back to do a part 2. This was a requested show, and we will continue on with the topic at another time. But that's it for the Den, guys. The Den may be closing, but don't you worry, the weekend fun has only just begun. Make sure you come back Thursday through Sunday for AJ the Ripon Rabbit's Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. That's right. This week, guys, I happen to again been overhearing and eavesdropping what them rabbits are going to be talking about, and I happen to have some information. On Thursday, he's going to be talking about quantum computing. Is it a little more overblown and overhyped than it should be, or is it the new way of the future? Will we have quantum computers in our homes in the next 20 years, or will they stay in laboratories? Hopefully one of these answers will be garnered on Thursday. Then Friday, he'll be talking about an apple a day. It's an old adage, but is it true? Is an apple a day really keep the doctor away, or is it just an old wives' tale? He'll go over a lot of that on Friday. Then on Saturday, he's either going to be talking about oiling a snake or snake oil salesman. I think it's snake oil salesman, truth be told. How many products do you use every day that might actually be more snake oil than you think they are? Maybe you'll find out on Saturday. Then Sunday, he's going to be talking about daredevils. Are you a daredevil? Are you a thrill seeker? Do you like to have fun on the edge of the extreme? Then this show will definitely be for you. This sounds like an amazing lineup that I cannot wait to hear even myself. So you guys make sure you come back Thursday through Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for the rest of the weekend with the Animals Radio. Jerry the Dark Wolf's kicking off on Wednesday night, and of course Thursday through Sunday, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit. Speaking of Ripon Rabbit, we're going to go over to the RiponRabbitHole.com, and over there we're going to be in the VIP 24/7 Backstage Lounge. That's my favorite hangout, actually. I'm going to go over there right after the show, and there's a great audience, guys. International group over there. Great group of people. If you want to join us, it's absolutely free. Go to the RiponRabbitHole.com. That's RiponRabbitHole.com. Over there, you're going to find the 24/7 Backstage Lounge link. Scroll about halfway down the page, you'll find the VIP entrance. Go ahead and click on that. Select your camera and microphone to be allowed. You can turn those off the moment you get in there and join us in chat, and we'd be absolutely glad to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, there's all kind of cool stuff over there, like the shout outs that you hear at the beginning of the show. You go down to the very bottom of every page, there's a big red button. Hit that big red button. We're going to record 30 seconds audio and ship it to us over here in the studio, and we'll get it on the air just for you. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, down in the description on the Dark Wolf's Den Show page on YouTube, there's a Facebook page link. We're starting a new show, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories. Strange, funny, true. That's the key. They got to be true stories. Paranormal, out of this world, we don't care. We want to hear it. And if you would like to hear yours read on the air, we would definitely like to hear from you. Anonymity is top notch, so don't worry. If you don't want your name mentioned, anonymity will be garnered. Ladies and gentlemen, we really hope to hear from you over there or at our email, darkwolfsden, the letter Y, the letter T, @gmail.com. That's it for me, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And on behalf of AJ the Ripon Rabbit and everybody at Ripon Common Sense Radio, we thank you for being here, and remember always, stay awake but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Don't go missing now.
The Animals of Radio right here on the very best of Common Sense Radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. Wow. Can you believe it? We kicked off a weekend right. My top hat's off to you, Jerry, for an amazing show tonight. The hairs on the back of my neck literally stood up tonight all night long. If you enjoyed tonight's look at Missing 411 with Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den Show, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. Now, Jerry kicks off the weekends every Wednesday night. He delivers the very best in paranormal common sense radio with the Dark Wolf's Den Show every Wednesday evening, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Mark your calendars and be here or be square. Here's a look at the weekend ahead as the rabbit hole continues. Thursday, August 20th, quantum computing. Just what is quantum computing and how does it affect you directly or your future? Tune in and find out Thursday, August 20th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then Friday, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Is that real? Or is it one of those old wives' tales, urban legend or a myth? And just eating an apple a day is just a great way to sell apples, perhaps. We're going to dive through the rabbit hole into where this thinking comes from and similar sayings that are very similar to it. And do you believe these wives' tales to be true? Tune in Friday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, and find out. Then Saturday, August 23rd, 2020, snake oil. We'll dive through the rabbit holes of medicine men and snake oils and elixirs, both from the present and throughout our entire past. What snake oils are being sold to us today? Tune in Saturday, August 22nd, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, and find out. Then we'll end out the weekend together. Sunday night, Daredevils. Are you a risk taker, thrill seeker, or daredevil? Some people risk life for entertainment. But why do they do that? What's behind risk-taking at Daredevils? We're going to find out Sunday, August 23rd, 2020, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. All shows here at the Ripon Rabbit Hole start at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. A big surprise planned this weekend at some point. I'm not going to tell you when, because actually I don't know myself. But at some point throughout the weekend, before the end is over, there's going to be a great surprise. So you're just going to want to stay tuned to be a part of it. You won't want to miss it when it's live. Ones across the board coming in for Jerry. My top hat's off to kicking off the weekend right. Mr. Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den Show returns next Wednesday right here on the very best of Common Sense Radio, the RipandRabbitHole.com.